What do you think, you know, leaders and also just consumers, what all of us need to know about cybersecurity and AI? Because you've got such a great vantage point from where you are.
Well, I think the main thing is to make sure that you have the understanding that this is open source. This is out in the world. So if you put your date of birth and all your personal information into it, you just gave it to every country, every person that has internet.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean it's going to be misused, but it certainly can be. And so you want
Mhm.
to make sure that you're protecting yourself and that you care about your own security. It's very difficult because we are so dependent on technology right now, and
Mhm.
we use so many apps right now that ask us for personal information just to do
Right.
little things.
Right.
Even if it's a little, um, tell me your favorite color and what's your, all these questions like that
Mhm.
come up on a little Facebook thing, and people are
Oh my
putting that
gosh.
information in.
Those are deadly. Yeah. Or your favorite
Yes,
car, right? That not
yes.
realizing that's a top security question, you know?
Yes, and they're putting these security questions into a cute little, um, do all your friends know, what your best, color dress is or whatever it is, it could be
Right.
anything.
Or
And there's like
or
20
or your pet
questions.
when you were a little kid that you love so and,
Yes,
and they phrase it in such a way that it sounds charming and adorable and
it does.
and warm and fuzzy. And the only thing that's warm and fuzzy about that is that they're scooping it up to, then sell it on the dark web and make money on it. Hello and welcome to the Smarter Online Safety Show. I'm your host, Jocelyn King, the queen of online safety. So, my guest today is Lara Hamilton. She is the Director of IT Services at HelpDesk Realty, where she and her team support over 1,400 property managers. And for over 15 years, she's helped housing teams keep their systems running, their staff supported, and their compliance intact so they're protecting all of the companies as well as all of the customers in all of their data. And she says that IT isn't just about fixing computers, it's about protecting resident data and making sure portfolios of properties don't grind to a halt when technology fails. And she's helped property managers understand cybersecurity and AI and the risks to themselves and their businesses. And now she's here to do the same for us to understand how to protect ourselves from cybersecurity and AI tools in the hands of cyber criminals. So, welcome, Laura. So great to have you.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
That's awesome. Now, you've had a full career in IT and cyber protections. I always like to know, how did you get into the field?
Well, it wasn't a straight path. I originally started in banking.
Okay.
I worked for a bank for 5 years in the operations department, and it was, low level operations, right?
Hmm.
And one of the things that I did in those departments was I'd work in a department, and then I noticed they were doing a lot of things, manual processes and things like that,
Hmm.
and I was able to streamline those processes and streamline them so well that I streamlined myself out of a job. And so I was fortunate enough that they recognized that and said, "Oh, you did that great. Now come over here to this department. Let's try it again."
Oh,
So
good.
I got moved around quite a bit within the
Hmm.
banking operations system, and it just kind of went from there. And
Okay.
my love for configuration and things like that, and working with the software,
That's
just took
awesome.
off.
And then somewhere along the way in this IT, you started
Yes.
seeing cyber crime and cyber security needs and things like that. What are some of the things that you started? How did you first get exposed to, hackers and the world of cyber criminals?
Well, just like everyone, you personally get exposed and
Hmm.
then you realize, okay, hold on, this isn't really the path I want for myself. I want to make sure that the people that I work with are protected as well.
Hmm.
Um, in the industry that I'm in, um, the companies that I work with, they're in and out of property management software, and it's so important that the configurations of those software is protecting their residents because they're entering information if it's an affordable property, for example, with social security numbers, dates of birth,
Hmm.
things like that, that are very important to keep secure. Um, a lot of that is encrypted, which is what protects their data.
Hmm.
It's not easily accessible even by the end user, things like that. So it's just every day is different, you know?
Right. And there's a lot going on in the overall thing about properties in general, from real estate fraud to when, houses are purchased. And then I'm sure when you've got property management, you've got, new residents moving in and people moving out and stuff. AI in the hands of cyber criminals is just, it's old and it's new, but it's old
Yeah.
enough that it's established. What are the trends you're seeing of how cyber criminals are using AI to try to get access to data that they can sell or to actual financial transactions, things like that?
Well, it's interesting we're talking about this today because
Mhm.
one of the things that is going on in the world right now is the Savannah Guthrie mother's kidnapping
Mhm.
and the ransom note that's been sent. And they made a very good speech I think yesterday on Instagram about how can we trust that this is true. And I think that's part of the thing is that there are so many things being used with AI now that
Right.
people don't know what to trust. And
Mhm.
I think it's good to be cautious. It's good to be to trust but verify
Mhm.
data, but it's also good to be responsible with how you're using AI, because you can use, let's just say you use an AI platform and you put in um, information that's proprietary to your company.
Mhm.
Well, that now you've just opened that up to the whole world. And
Right.
so that information can now be used. It's not
And
secure in that way, you know.
it can be used against the whole company and even against other employees of the company and the executives and anybody because it's gotten out
Exactly.
now.
Yes. I mean, you don't want to put KFC's original recipe into into a AI platform so that everybody
Mhm.
now has the recipe, then it's not special, right?
Right. Well, and you bring up a good point because this is true across all industries, but businesses are everywhere are in a panic state about, just employees who are trying to keep their jobs in a time of AI and, come across as smart are putting, the plans, like the 3-year plan for, products or marketing or sales or whatever
Yes.
into Chat GPT or Claude or Gemini and asking for a plan because they have a presentation to do in a day or two.
Right.
But then where does that data reside now?
Yes. And I've had people ask me, if I'm doing something and it's in a more of a manual process, and they're like, well, why are you doing it that way? Why aren't you just using AI to create it for you? And I tell them, well, there's a few reasons. One is exactly the reason you just said. Now my whole plan is out in the world. And then two, you can't really trust AI. It's not a person. It's not a critical thinker. It
Hmm.
is pulling information based off of what's out in the world. Some things are
Hmm.
not true that are out in the world.
Right.
And so we have to then go verify the data that's being used.
Right. Right. That's a great point. It also it's so much like a young child that wants to please you. When I'm using
Yes.
it, I'll notice like I'll ask it and then I'll ask it, it'll give me these statistics like 87% of or something. And I'll say, okay, I always ask it to cite the source, please give me reputable source citations. And it comes back, it says, oops, you caught me. It literally will say that to
It
you. It'll say,
does.
whoops, you caught me. I made that up. And it's like a kid that's been caught with its hand in the cookie jar or candy bowl or something. And you're like, wait a minute. And so you do have to, you have to trust but verify everything you see, and you have to trust but and verify everything in chat or any of
Yes,
the AI things. That's really good.
for
What?
sure. It
Mhm.
makes it more it almost takes more time sometimes to use it when you're trying to get something accomplished that's time sensitive.
Right.
So, you know,
Right. Well, and this is why a lot of companies are looking to have their own instances of AI inside and that are contained and don't leak out
correct.
into the public so that you're not because as an innocent person trying to use it to protect your job because you're afraid AI is going to take your job over, you use ChatGPT or something to do it. You've just put your company's roadmap of whatever marketing, product,
Yes.
customer accounts, whatever into it's basically you've put it out into Google, kind of for search results that anybody could find if you think of it that way,
Yeah.
and so and that's a firing offense. to use it
It
that way. So,
It is. And one of the things I tell businesses and companies about AI, this is not a replacement for employees. This is another tool to use.
hmm
It is not going to take jobs away. It's
hmm
going to enhance the jobs that they have. It'll give them more time to do other tasks,
right,
not necessarily just eliminate positions. That's not really the intent here. I don't.
right. No, that's a great point. And this is a sidebar, but it's such a nice addition to what you're saying. One of the I was at a think tank group over this last week, but one of the things that they were saying, one of the biggest mistakes they're seeing companies make is that they're trying because everybody's enamored with AI and it's like the panacea for everything, that they're keeping the human employee population working on the mundane, repetitive tasks, and they're asking AI to do the big picture, thinking and strategic planning tasks when it should be the other way around, or
Right.
that you ask it for ideas, but you use it as an idea generator, not as a plan creator, and then you have your human brains take what AI is generating to then create a good plan. And most companies, especially public companies, because they have needs to report out to shareholders and boards, and they're on that quarterly timeline. They're implementing so fast. And I think the latest statistics I saw on these AI pilots that all companies are
Hmm.
doing, the failure rate is close to 90%.
Wow.
And it's
Yeah.
because it was glommed together so fast, and also a pilot is exactly that. It's a test to make it, see if it's failing or succeeding, and then improve it and keep iterating until you get it right. But
Yeah.
90% of AI pilots are failing because they were just thrown together and everybody's trying to replace people and cut staff. And it's so that's why I think we all have this angst, certainly
Yes.
workers do.
For sure. And we've got, in our own company, we have an AI department, and that
hmm
department does exactly what you were saying. We create um, individual AI databases for companies so that they have their own proprietary information in that database, but it's not open to the world. So you
Right.
can use AI in the way that you're expecting, but you're not sharing that knowledge across not just the country, but the world. It's just everyone. It's
That's a
out
great
there.
point. And if you work at a company and you feel you need to be using AI, you should be asking your IT team or whoever they
Right.
are, like, what do we have as proprietary AI that I can use to augment my work if they haven't already done a whole rollout? Because a lot of these things are still being built and they're accessible. And in fact, the IT teams probably want some, beta users to get in there. You could be an early
Yeah.
adopter inside your own company,
That's true.
but and then you get to be a hero instead of the person who got caught putting confidential information out on the internet. So
Yes, for
that's a
sure.
very good tip for people. That's great.
And a lot of companies should also have an AI policy
hmm
that they share with their employees. We do what we call the phishing. We do phishing campaigns and things, but we have a
hmm
software where it sends out classes to all your employees where and they have a generative AI class that you can take and what impact what you do in AI, what does that have on your company, and
Awesome.
just
Okay.
educating your
Mhm.
employees on it for sure.
Right. And that's a best practice. And
Yes.
kudos to you and congratulations to your team and your company. But you guys are on the one end of the bell curve because most people have not, the majority of companies have not adopted that yet. They're in the process of creating their AI policy, and they may have put out some kind of missive of don't use public, AI tools, but
Right.
most most employees are still confused about what they can and can't do, and is there something in-house? So, and it has not worked its way through all companies yet, that's for sure.
That is definitely for sure. But
Right.
people use AI every day and they don't even realize it. So it's, don't be afraid of it, but
Right. Well,
proceed with caution.
if you have apps on your phone, you're using AI.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
What are some other ways that people are using AI and don't realize it? Like, well, we talked about Google search,
Well,
right? There you
I
go.
mean,
Right?
just yeah, Google search.
Mhm.
Recently, I think Facebook came out with a, do you want to caricaturize yourself, And so create a caricature of yourself. And so just little things like that, people are being
Mhm.
introduced to it and
Mhm.
not really realizing it. Your bank might have one on notifications that get sent to you. out of their software. If
Mm-hmm.
you are living in an apartment complex and you get notification text messages when your rent is due, those things may be generated by AI. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of AI out there already. It's just how do you personally use it to protect yourself?
That's great advice. Let's dig a little deeper on that. What do you think, you know, leaders and also just consumers, what all of us need to know about cybersecurity and AI? Because you've got such a great vantage point from where you are.
Well, I think the main thing is to make sure that you have the understanding that this is open source. This is out in the world. So if you put your date of birth and all your personal information into it, you just gave it to every country, every person that has internet.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean it's going to be misused, but it certainly can be. And so you want
Mhm.
to make sure that you're protecting yourself and that you care about your own security. It's very difficult because we are so dependent on technology right now, and
Mhm.
we use so many apps right now that ask us for personal information just to do
Right.
little things.
Right.
Even if it's a little, um, tell me your favorite color and what's your, all these questions like that
Mhm.
come up on a little Facebook thing, and people are
Oh my
putting that
gosh.
information in.
Those are deadly. Yeah. Or your favorite
Yes,
car, right? That you not
yes.
realizing that's a top security question, you know?
Yes, and they're putting these security questions into a cute little, um, do all your friends know, what your best, color dress is or whatever it is, it could be
Right.
anything.
Or
And there's like
or
20
or your pet
questions.
when you were a little kid that you love so
Yes,
and they phrase it in such a way that it sounds charming and adorable and
it does.
and warm and fuzzy. And the only thing that's warm and fuzzy about that is that they're scooping it up to, then sell it on the dark web and make money on it. You and I have both seen dark web sales, and that
Yes.
stuff's just like I always say, it's like flea market items on eBay, except it's your data and mine. So
Right. That's right. And are you putting in like when everybody says, "Oh, put your senior high school picture," and it's these are all things that are going out into the world, and once you
right.
put it on social media, it's out there for everyone.
That's true. And once it's on the internet, it's always digital out there. You
That's
cannot
true.
pull it back. Yeah, you
Right.
cannot pull it back. Wow, that's great. Let's talk a little bit more about that from the standpoint of data privacy and protecting. So what, when people are, let's talk about, so in using AI and stuff, or, and
Mhm.
even Google searches, how do you best um, advise people to protect their personal information so they have some data privacy in this non-private world that we live in?
It's very, very difficult because what you do all day long is, and you look at something, you see an article, and you're like, oh, well, wonder what that means, and you Google it and all the things. I will tell you, I do a little bit of weird, like crime junkie kind of thing. So
Uh-huh.
I followed a case that happened several years ago, and it went through like a 5-year process of, it was called the cult murdering mom. I don't know if you heard of it, but it
Okay.
had a huge thing, and it was in several states involved. And the way that they were able to find these two missing children, the way they were able to find them was all by technology. And it was so
Mm,
interesting to me because they were able to pinpoint the cell phone usage and where they were standing in the backyard of the house,
wow.
where they were pinging from where they drove from one place to another, everything they used, all of their text messages, their emails, every
Right.
single digital footprint they had was all
Mhm.
compiled together to make this case. And it really made the difference on getting these convictions or not. And
Mhm.
so people should be aware that everything they do when it involves the internet or technology, it's all tracked in
Right.
some way, and somewhere it's there.
Well, like even people think that their location's not known, but they're unless you know how to go in and scrub, every picture you take has
Yeah.
metadata on it with coordinates and of where you are. Every message you send has an attachment of what cell tower it's attached to. So
Yes.
there's all these, it's everything's getting appended with data about your whereabouts
Yes.
and
And
even
it's
who you're with.
correct. And it in the people will say, well, turn your phone off if you don't want people to know. Well, that alone is a sign. How many people just turn their phone off for an hour, and
Mhm.
that's what were you doing within that hour? So there's just so many things that technology is so advanced on that I don't even think can scratch the surface of what you just have to be so careful with your own personal information.
That's so true because the thing is that gets everyone is they're like, well, if it's so easy to find my whereabouts and everything, then how come we can't find these hackers who
Well,
are
that's a
coming
good
at it
point.
and stop them? And I think one thing that those of us who work in cybersecurity know is that
Hmm.
hackers are experts at creating an air gap, right? So that
Right,
they know all the advanced settings and ways to go around and how to get off of operating systems that everybody else uses and things so that they are really in a digital underground, basically,
right.
and not visible. And they're masters of that. Now, of course, they're living a life that most civilians do not want to live. It's looking over your shoulder and being underground, and it's like
Yeah.
something out of a spy movie. But most people unfortunately feel that to protect themselves is to have to live like that too, which
Yeah.
I'd love for you to speak to that. How do you manage to stay safe and sane, you know, um, in this world we live in without, isolating yourself or feeling like you're living in a bunker or never ever seeing your friends' photos on Facebook.
I mean, it's
How can you be
tempting.
safe? I know. I
It's tempting to live in a bunker, but
know.
I'm too talkative for that.
I know.
So it wouldn't work out for me. And I
Mhm.
enjoy socializing with people. So I enjoy social
Mhm.
media, but I don't always put where I'm at in the moment I'm at. I'm there, you might see me post something about going somewhere, but I've already been there and gone. And so
Right.
things like
So you don't
that,
check in on the first
I
day
don't,
of your
I
vacation.
don't, no, I don't,
You check in after you've left or when you get
That's
home.
right.
Okay.
That's right.
Mhm.
Just don't keep everything in your device. Don't keep all your social security numbers in your on your phone. Things like
Like in a
that.
note or a
Yes,
doc or my favorite, a Google Doc that's called passwords dot
exactly,
dot doc.
exactly. I mean, just be responsible, be aware,
Mhm.
but don't live in fear all the time because,
Mhm.
we all, I mean, let's be honest with you. I have my cell phone right here.
Mhm.
I could be tracked where I'm at right now if somebody really wanted to know. I'm
Right.
not committing crimes, and so that's the difference.
Right.
So
Right.
that there's that too.
You bring up a good point because there are kind of there's two primary types of cybercrime. One is the blanket, which is, the, spray and pray, the blunt force, like we're just gonna, the bot's gonna send out 100,000, login attempts of passwords and stuff. And if
Right.
you have basic protections in place and multi-factor authentication and stuff, you're not gonna do that. Now, if somebody really wants to do you harm, and this comes up a lot because there's people who are going through divorces, or business lawsuits, or has a crazy neighbor, or or something. If you're being targeted, you are more vulnerable because of that. It's kind of like the difference between a porch pirate, in the holidays driving down your street looking for Amazon packages and just swooping and grabbing them versus somebody who's intentionally trying to break into your home.
Right.
And I think, and that not having to live paranoid is just put a lock up and have a dog, and the, your packages are not going to get stolen. But if
Right.
somebody's trying to target you, you do have to take higher levels of, security and precautions and things like that. So, um, all of them come down to the good hygiene that you're talking about, though, which is don't, the less available about you
Yes.
on, out there, the better.
Right. And I'm a talkative person, and so one thing that's difficult for me is I like to talk, but sometimes the more words you use, the less you're heard, right? And so it's the same thing with cybersecurity. The less you put out there, the less of a target you are. But if you
Hmm.
put a lot of stuff out there, then you're opening yourself up more
Right.
to an attack. So just be aware of that, but also take precautions. Use multi-factor, like you said. Um,
So tell
make,
people about multi-factor and where they should use it. We talk about that on the show periodically, but we haven't
yeah.
talked about this on the show for a little while. So
So
what should they
yeah.
use multi-factor on and why?
So multi-factor in my world is everybody hates it. And it's not the IT people that hate it. It is the end user hates multi-factor. I understand because, it's we are an instant gratification society now. And
Hmm.
so we want to be able to just click on it, get in there, do what we got to do and get out.
So log
But
into your bank
log into your bank,
without
log
having to
into,
wait for a code to come to your phone or your email or
yes.
something like that.
And we're sitting there tapping our, waiting on the email for the code or whatever it
Hmm.
is.
Hmm.
And so I totally understand it, but it is one of those necessary evils.
Hmm.
It's very important to use multi-factor when you're logging into your bank accounts, when you're logging in. I would even say into your like your social media accounts, things like
Hmm.
that, because those are where you're putting a lot of information. Um,
And in reality, that delay is usually around 10 seconds.
it's
So
not
in the
bad.
scheme of things, now
Yeah,
and you bring up a good point because when people are complaining about it, it's kind of like, well, if you follow that logic, then you'd be like, you know what? It takes too long to lock the deadbolt on my house when I leave for work or go on
right,
vacation. I'm just not going to have a lock on my front or back door anymore, And in
right.
fact, closing the windows, that takes me minutes. Well, I'm not even going to close my windows. I'm just going to. So, I mean, if you really follow the logic of saying this is too much, you're
Yes,
probably not applying that same logic to your physical safety in your
that's
home.
right.
Right.
And it's true because we all have a false sense of security, whether it is a physical security or cybersecurity.
Hmm.
We all think that'll never happen to me until it does,
Hmm.
but we have know of many, many circumstances where it did happen.
Right.
A perfect, very public ish situation that happened that involved cybersecurity was Kim Kardashian and when she was robbed
Mhm.
in Paris
Right.
because they knew exactly what her pattern was based off of her social media and
Right.
what her jewelry was based off of her social media. And so that's a perfect example of where,
Right.
you're trying to just live your life and
Hmm.
someone's going to take advantage.
Right. And most people will say, well, I'm not Kim Kardashian and I'm not worth
Right.
millions. But I think the thing is, if you're away from your home, you have that. In fact, it's kind of funny because being in cybersecurity, I don't post when I land and things like that too. But
Right.
I was laughing because the person who house sits and pet sits for me is a retired law enforcement, and fully armed. And I was like, people who think you're on vacation, so it's open season, sometimes they're in for a surprise.
That's very true.
But
Very true.
yeah, but still, um, the average person, you don't have to be a Kim Kardashian. The fact that you're
That's right.
gone, criminals are just after low-hanging fruit. They're not, and if you're if you're saying, "Hey, I'm gone,"
Hmm.
they're seeing a free sign on your house.
Right. Just like Home Alone, right? That's how the criminals found the house.
Exactly.
Nobody was home. They thought it was empty.
Exactly. Exactly. No, that's great advice. What other things? So for multi-factor, what do you recommend people turn it on? You talked about social media, you talked about obviously banks and stuff like that.
Banks, any of your financial information.
And let's
Um,
talk
it,
about, a big thing that's coming out now is passwords and password managers, but of course, besides that is passcodes and identifier apps and things like that. We haven't really gotten into that on the show. Let's talk a little bit about that. What do you recommend are the best authentication methods that, or how should people choose if they have the choice? Do you recommend they use an authenticator app or codes, or how should they decide what's right for them?
So it really depends on where you're going to be able to get that information. We do
Hmm.
several different ways.
Hmm.
Some of the softwares that we support, has multiple ways that you can use multi-factor. So it can send an email to you, or
Hmm.
it can send you a text message, or it can send you through your Google Authenticator app or your Microsoft Authenticator app. So any of those things would be successful.
Hmm.
I would recommend having more than one because if you change your phone number, then all of a sudden now you can't get into anything.
That happened
So,
to me.
yeah,
I changed the phone number and because I have several hundred accounts with passwords and stuff. When
right.
you finally, and by the way, the average person has 400 now. Most people think they have 10 to 40, but by the time you go
Wow.
back to everything you've ever set up, or
Yeah.
in order to get that 20% off discount for the gift you're buying for the holidays, you sign into an account or you buy the yoga session on Groupon, but you've got to set up an account to, just there's all
Yes.
those things that have logins that we don't think about. But when you put them all together, but when you have that, I had changed most of them, but there was some old account from 10 years before, and it kept wanting to reset my password, back onto that. And it can be very hard, and especially
Yes.
a lot of companies don't have, these robust customer service. You're basically text doing an online chat with a bot trying to get your
Right.
password reset
Yes.
for a phone number you no longer have. It can be challenging. So you bring up a great point there. It's something to keep in mind when you change your phone number, that you got to change your two-factor authentication before you shut it down.
Yes, for sure. And or your email. You could have it on your email and well, I'm going to get a new email address, or you put your work email and now you change jobs and so you can't get
Hmm.
it anymore.
And
So
so when
just
it's sending an authorization code,
yeah.
sending it to your old company, and your email is no longer valid, probably. So yeah.
Yep,
Mhm.
exactly.
That's great advice. That's awesome. That is, and what do you think are some of the potential upsides we should be looking forward to with AI helping consumers and companies make us safer in the future? And obviously the bad guys are knowing what to do with AI.
Right.
What are you wanting to see and starting to see from the good guys using AI?
Well, I mean, a perfect example of a great thing was I was teaching an AI class and it was on Copilot and how to use Copilot. It's a little more secure. It's in your environment. You can keep it kind of more secure.
And this is for
But
Microsoft, for anybody who doesn't use Microsoft. Yeah.
yes. And so, but you can open it up to the web. And
Mhm.
if you do, so I opened it up to the web and did a PowerPoint. And man, I wish I had had this when I was in high school. I created a whole report on World War II. And I was like, it took me like 5 minutes. I was like, this is
Ah,
amazing.
I know, I know.
So,
It's so-
man, I would have loved to have that, back in the day. But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
also glad social media wasn't around when I
that's right.
was in high school as well. So,
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of pros and cons to the modern.
for
Certainly
sure.
for kids growing up, it's got to be it's a different challenge, and for parents. So
Definitely,
that's awesome.
definitely. But there's a lot of great things about AI. I mean, it can create images for you that are
Mhm.
fun. It'll help you navigate things uh, like I said, if you're using Copilot and it's in your internal environment, you can use like financial data and help chart those things easier and things like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, so there's some good things about it for sure. Just
That's great.
proceed with caution.
That is great. And any other final words you would want to have our viewers, pay attention to, or think about, or think twice about before they do something?
Just remember that whatever you're putting out in the world, it's out there, it's open to the world at that point, and making sure that you're respecting your company's information the same way that you would want your information respected, whether it be like in HIPAA or HR or any of those things. You want your medical information protected, protect your companies as well.
That's great advice. Thank you for that. That's so good. And for people who want to learn more about you or your company, anything you want to share?
Sure, you can check out our website, teamtectonic.com.
I love that.
Or you can shoot me an email at lhamilton@teamtectonic.com, and we'll be glad to help you guys.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. Great advice. And just, and I am a huge fan of Tennessee, and I love your accent. I love the people in Tennessee, and the hospitality, and people are just so gracious and helpful whenever you go to Tennessee. And you have brought that to our show today. So thank you so much for that, and way to represent.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, you've gotten some great tips from Laura today. I highly recommend you follow her advice with the multi-factor authentication and social media, and particularly around how you use AI for personal and at work, so that you can use it to your best advantage and not have it come back to bite you, and for all the other tips she gave us. So thank you for joining us today. And until next time, stay safe out there.